little artist. Today I'm going to show you how to make a snowflake out of coffee filters. I have here with me some coffee filters. I've got a whole stack of them. They're very inexpensive. You can get them from any grocery store or dollar store. And we're just going to use one at a time. I also have my scissors ready because we're going to need those in just a minute. And we're going to start with this coffee filter by pressing it flat. Now, if you don't have coffee filters, I have some other videos that will show you how to make a snowflake out of copy paper. And the reason it's a little different is because you're starting off with a different shape. So our coffee filters are circles, and I'm going to start pressing it with my hand, flattening it out on the table. And it's not going to get completely flat, but I'm just going to do the best I can to flatten it out as much as I can. And then once I get it as flat as I can, I'm going to go ahead and start folding. I'm going to take the bottom, fold it up to the top, and it's very important when you're folding things like this that you line up your edges. We get these edges to line up and go all the way so that you can barely tell that they're different edges. See how they're lined up, matching? And then I'm going to press it flat. So I've folded my coffee filter in half, and I call this fold the taco fold because it looks like a taco. Now that I have my taco, I'm going to take and fold my taco in half. I'm going to take this side right here. I'm going to fold it over, line up my edges, and again I'm going to press it flat. Now this fold, I like to call this the chunk of cake because it looks like a big chunk of cake. It's like a fourth of the circle. And there goes my big chunk of cake. And now I'm going to take my chunk of cake and I'm going to fold it again. I'm going to take this side right here and fold it over, making sure that this stays down here so that it can crease over. And I'll show you, see how all my edges are right there. Line up my edge here on this side, and then I'm going to press it flat. It's very good to take it and press it down with your fingers as much as you can. And you see I've gotten a little bit off here, so I'm just going to fix that real quick. If you don't have a point at the end, doesn't go to a point, just double check and make sure that you folded it correctly. And once you get it folded correctly, go ahead, press down those edges, those two folds right there and there. Just helps it stay down. It won't stay down perfectly, but it will make it a little easier when you cut. So now that I have this is my piece of pizza, or sometimes we call this the ice cream cone fold. So now that I have my ice cream cone, we're going to look at this point right here. This is the middle of my snowflake. So if I'm making a very simple snowflake, if this is like the first time I've made a snowflake, I might take my scissors and just cut a simple cut right there. Now I'm using the inside of my scissors right there. I'm going to put the paper all the way down in there because that's the strongest part of my scissors. When I use the strongest part of my scissors, I cut better when I'm trying to cut through thickness. Like this is kind of thick. It's several thicknesses. And when I put my paper down in there like that, it's just easier to cut. If I'm going with a simple snowflake, I can just cut right here. I could cut it straight, or I could cut it this way. Now this is going to be the center of my snowflake again, so if I cut a big chunk like this, it's going to put a big hole in my snowflake, so I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is either cut simple like this, or if I want to get fancy, I might cut a shape, cutting the tip off. See the tip right there? But cut a shape using that tip. It could be like a diamond shape. It could be a curved shape. I'm going to cut a diamond shape, but it's going to have like a little ball at the end, like a little circle at the end. You see how I have to keep moving my paper with my extra hand. I don't just move the scissors. I also move the paper with my extra hand. It helps me cut around because it is kind of hard to get around some of these little folds and things. I have my center cut out there. And if I'm interested and I'm curious, what does that look like? What is it going to look like? I don't want to open up my snowflake and look, because then if I try to fold it back to cut out some more, it'll be hard. If I'm interested to make sure it worked correctly, I can open up the little scrap piece that came off and open it up and see what that looks like. That's what the center of my snowflake looks like. So I'm going to push that aside because that's really my scrap. I could save it as a little tiny snowflake. It's really my scrap paper, so I'm going to push that to the side. And now I'm going to cut shapes on the sides. Now I can cut shapes, any shapes I want. I can cut triangles, squares, circles. I can cut any shape I want. It's just it's very important that my shapes not touch. So when I cut my first shape, it can't touch this other shape that I've already cut. I need to leave space between all my shapes. I need to make sure that every time I cut, because these could be shapes that I name, like circles and squares and triangles, or these can be shapes that don't have a name, like that shape doesn't have a name. So I'm going to push my scraps over and keep them out of the way. And I'm going to leave space between each shape. So I'm going to cut another shape. And make sure that something falls off. That time it was stuck. I had to pull on it a little bit. So every time I cut a shape, I make sure it falls off. See? That piece fell off. Cut another shape, leaving some space between them. And every time I cut, make sure something falls off. Now if I pull on that, uh-oh, that one's stuck. It didn't come off. So what do? I take my scissors, stick them inside, and make sure that my cut works. And see, it did come off that time. The more shapes you cut, the more interesting your snowflake will be. You might want to start off with some small shapes, a few shapes here and there. See what happens. The cool thing about coffee filters is they're not very expensive, and when you buy them, you get a whole bunch. So you can make a whole bunch of snowflakes and try different things just to see what happens. Now when I cut my shapes, there's two things to remember. My shapes cannot be close together. I have to leave space between them. And I have to make sure that every time I make a cut, something falls off. Because if I just cut like this and this, nothing fell off. So that shape isn't going to show up. It's just a little cut. So I'm going to put my scissors in there and make sure that this time something falls off. See? So cut shapes on all three sides, and when you're done and have all your shapes spaced out, you used all your space, then we can open it up. Now don't open it until you've cut all your shapes. And you're going to notice that because we folded it like this, it's going to be hard to flatten it out. And you can put them between some books to flatten them out. Put something heavy on top to flatten them out so that you get your shape a little bit better. There goes my snowflake. Now don't forget, if you are at home, learning at home, you need to take a picture of your snowflake. You can make a whole bunch of them, but just need to take a picture of one. And to make sure that they show up good, if you're taking a picture of it to put on Artsonia, you want to put it with a dark background so it shows up.
If you would like to add color to your snowflake, you can use watercolors to paint the snowflake. Just make sure that you protect your work area with newspaper before you begin.
I hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and check out my other snowflake lessons and have fun.